Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we're talking about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Only Murders in the Building, Season 4, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I love that whole development with the reveal about Glenn not being the person. We're like, oh, we thought he was a stunt person that she had issues with. And I love the reveal that no, he's not. Because he ended up replacing the person that Saz had issues with, which I thought was so fascinating. Because I love that reveal, because you're initially thinking like, okay, Glenn seems to be the type of dude that Saz would accidentally back into him, and then he roll into her car, and she's like, yo, I'm actually going to give you a job. Have you ever thought about being a stunt person? And and that's where it kind of rolls on from there. But they came to visit Glenn, and he's still kind of in and out, and so they're doing these terrible Irish accents. Mabel's the only one that didn't like commit to the bit. And I always thought it was interesting that the nurse is Irish as hell. I was like, that to me was a little suspicious. Cause I was like, could she be the stunt person? Like, playing the role of a nurse? But it's like, nah. Cause like, Glenn didn't recognize her. It was like, oh my God, basically, will you be the Mrs. Glenn Stubbins? I'm, by the way, Glenn Stubbins. But, yeah, I even love they're like, oh yeah, we brought him beer. She's like, oh yeah, brought him alcohol because he's Irish, huh? Next thing you know, you're gonna bring him, I forgot what it was, that, oh, you brought him this too, and he's like, Charles is like, no, as he hides the bag behind his back. But the stunt guy bartender they met, it turns out he knows and is familiar with the project, Ronkonkoma, and it turns out the only people that know the identity of the person that Glenn replaced is Glenn himself, Saz, and the director of the movie, Ron Howard, which immediately my brain was like, wait, are they going to actually get Ron Howard? But I was like, this show pulls pretty big star power, so it's like getting Ron Howard wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. I love how this show does like mess with you a little bit, because you're like, oh, they couldn't get Ron Howard, so I'm like, are they getting like a sound-alike or something like that? So he's at first you're seeing him hidden in the shadows, and then everything else is just from far away or behind, so you don't actually get to see him. And you find out in the episode, no, they actually did get Ron Howard. And I was like, I love that, where you're just like, oh, they couldn't get Ron Howard. No, they did. They were just screwing with you the entire time. I love that. I was like, that's so good, because you're just like, oh, they couldn't get Ron Howard, but no, they did. I think that's kind of a nice fake out. I think it's probably like a little bit of a wink and nod to like, hey, when you can't get this big celebrity or something, so you pretend. Like, you have to do a little movie magic, and you get like a stunt double to play them from behind. I'm so curious if you actually go back and watch the episode. Like, we see that shot from Ron Howard on the set of like that movie Saz was working with him on. And you see him from behind. It probably actually is Ron Howard from behind, but I'd like to believe, like, in those shots or when he's in the dark, it's not actually Ron Howard. I'd like to believe it's actually a stunt double playing him. I would hope that just for the extra bit of, like, no, it actually isn't him in those moments. But it probably is him. But you never know. Like, I don't know. But like I said, the show has the star power, like, the amount of actors, like pretty big celebrities this series was able to pull. And that's what makes the like line from what was it from Oliver being like, oh my God, finally a big name celebrity, or he's made some reference like that, which obviously it's a heavily meta joke, but there's so many layers to it, because it's like, right, the show itself pulls so many big name actors and celebrities, so there's that. But also, like, your three leads are big-time celebrities, So it's also, like, there's an extra layer of that. But it, like I say, it cuts even deeper, because, like, even in the confines of the universe of the show of Only Murders in the Building, they have three celebrities that are playing them in the movie adaptation of their story, where you have Eugene Levy, Zach Galifianakis, and Eva Longoria. So it's just, there's, like I said, there's layers upon layers upon layers to that joke. It's so fascinating. Which is also sad, because I guess in Oliver's eyes, they're not celebrities, which is, to be fair, he did not know Zach's name. So it's also interesting too. I was about to say this is coming off the episode, but it's like the episode before last, where you had like, Meryl Streep again popping up in this, but also you also had like Melissa McCarthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, once again, this show has had no shortage of big time celebrities in it. So And I love that Oliver tells his story about Ron Howard. And that's the thing. You never know, because most of the time you're like, Oliver's stories are complete and utter BS. But it's now that thing of this episode makes you go, so does that mean every story he's ever told ends up being true? You think it's all horse crap because everyone believes it to be BS. But it's like, no, he's like, oh, me and Ron. And I was like, are we going to find out it's real? But then like the way the episode plays out, once again, kind of luring you into I'm trying to find the exact wording. But I mean, it's lying and manipulating you, making you think like, oh, like Oliver is delusional enough. We've always known him to be a very delusional person. So he actually believes him and Ron have a connection, that he actually told that story. And then jumping ahead, spoilers, not even spoilers, but just, jumping ahead to the end of the episode, we find out, no, it is real. Ron immediately recognizes, it's like, Ollie. And it does the whole soup thing that is like, oh, the thing that he said, like, oh, if you do this in front of Ron, he'll recognize you. He'll immediately recognize me. So I love that whole bit, but no one wanted to believe Oliver about it. So, and he's like, well, I can't call up Ron. I don't have his cell phone number. I had like his fax machine number or something like that. So Mabel went to Bev, which I wonder if that's supposed to be like some like slight commentary on. I don't know if that's supposed to be like a older generation versus a younger generation, where it's like, she called her assistant like, oh, did we have a meeting with Mabel? And it's like, no, I must have forgot. And she's like, it's okay. Yes, you might have forgotten. It's okay. And literally her assistant or whatever is like having a nervous breakdown on the other line. I think it's probably a thing of like, I don't know if that's supposed to be like some sly commentary on, I'm not saying I believe this, but that's kind of like the whole perceptive of like, oh my God, this generation is so weak-willed and easily broken down. Like, I don't know if that was supposed to be like some like slight, supposed to be generational jab, or maybe that speaks more about Bev as a person, that like her assistant's so scared her. I mean, it could also be a commentary on the Hollywood machine, that you're like, oh my God, I screwed up so badly. I'm gonna get fired. This is such a good job. I don't want to lose it. Like, it could also be a commentary on that. Maybe some, whatever the case may be. And then we have Bev making a Red Bull and Slim Jim combination and blending it. And you're just like, that's disgusting. And just like, just leaning into her blending it. If we stayed on that for a good like 20 seconds of her blending that. I also love, once again, and I think that's always, celebrities being able to kind of take take the piss out of themselves as well, where it's like there's jokes about like, oh, everyone knows where Ron Howard is. It's like, yeah, he's working on some like intimate small movie that costs $200 million, which are like, that line hits so much more poignantly than you think it does. I mean, once again, that's kind of probably a shot in general against all of Hollywood, making like, oh, so it's supposed to be a small, intimate movie that costs $200 million. But it also, like, it's super relevant because Joker 2 is not doing well financially speaking. So it's just, once again, this has been filmed well in advance. Once again, that's just a larger conversation about bigger blockbuster movies, not all performing well. So it's just like, that's a very timely joke. It just happened to happen around the time of a movie that also did have $200 million. But the thing is, like, once again, not a shot at Joker, because there's a lot of big blockbuster movies that's kind of like, typically the average is 200 mil. It's kind of like the new average for those. So it just, once again, layers upon layers, and it's even more timely than I think when they originally wrote it. So it's kind of interesting. But it's like, yeah, Maple has to give some notes on the script about her character, because it's like, would you ever say bro? And she's like, no, I hang around like 70-year-olds. And Bev's like, yeah, I thought so. It's like, yeah, that you kind of give off this like erotic non-sexuality. She's like, it's the sweaters. But either way, they find Ron on his new set that he's working on, and they try to get in, and the security guard won't let them by. And it's just like, Charles tried to play up the role of, hey, I'm Brazos. I'm probably like, your dad probably watched the show. Your dad probably watched the show I was on. Maple was like, right, we're like a pretty big podcast on like the east side of the U.S. We're like the number one crime podcast on the eastern seaboard of like the U.S. or something like that. And Oliver tried to spin the whole like Ron and me and the soup thing. And I love that the guard initially was like, hey, congratulations on the podcast. and it's like, oh, I'm not much of a big TV person, so I wouldn't know you, and like, it's good to know you have such a relationship with Ron Howard, but he's like, yeah, man, I don't want to get fired. I want to, use this job to go and take my family to Disneyland. So I'm gonna need you, I'm just doing this because my boss is nearby. Get out of here. At first, I was thinking like that was him being sincere. Like he was like, I got to play this up as I shoo you away. But it was like, no, that was just a very like roundabout way. And even Oliver was like, oh, that was the most like pleasant like rejection ever, but I was like the most roundabout way of like going on this soliloquy in a way and then hitting you with the reject it, you're out. But nope, they get brought in by like being the extras, which I love that the guy just has to let them go by because it's like, yeah, we're the extras you're looking for, and it's like, you literally just told me different story. Whatever, I don't care. I guess for him it's like, it's not my responsibility. They claim to be the extra, so I just let them through. It's not on me. So there might have been some truth to that story he was telling them about, like taking his cousins to Disneyland and not wanting his job to lose his job. So, oh yeah. Also, Oliver wanted Charles to kind of. Well, I think Charles ended up offering to kind of like take him to dinner to celebrate his engagement to Loretta, but it turns into a, hey, let's make it a bachelorette party. Wasn't actually Charles' idea, was all Oliver's, and he's like, right, the acronym is WANDS: whiskey, A-list celebrities, and naughty secrets. The three big things that kind of make this something he wants from this whole bachelorette party, and he's kind of getting on Charles' nerves because Charles is throwing out suggestions, but then like Oliver in his typically snippy fashion kind of shoots down all his ideas while they're wearing these motion capture suits. I also skipped. Oh my god, I love the whole audition process too, because it's like, okay, we need you to kind of scream in terror, and Maple's like, you told me extras don't have to do anything, so well, you have to do something now. So Oliver does his thing, and obviously like he gives off kind of like, he actually nails it. It's not the same, but it kind of gives off the same energy as like a scream queen scream. It's like, all right, you're in. And then Charles doesn't even have to do anything because the guy's like, whoa, Brazos? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, wow, you're doing background work now? He's like, that's sad. Don't worry, you could be a part of this movie. I was like, there's a little bit of you like being like, oh, that's sweet, but it's mainly kind of a backhanded compliment because it's like, oh my god, how far you've fallen. It's like, oh. So interesting too, because you hear stories about, like, there was some big name actors where you're like, you find out they actually got their start as background actors. I remember there was one particular actor I heard about that with a pretty big name actor that, I mean, maybe there's a lot more, but maybe there's quite a few actors that have had that, but I know there's at least one actor. I want to say it might have been Matt Damon, but don't quote me on that. I feel like it was somewhat of that, like, that celebrity level actor-wise that had their start as a background actor, and I just can't remember if that is the case or not. Like I said, I feel like it might have been a Matt Damon, but I'd like to say don't quote me on it. I do believe it was someone in that echelon, but... And then Maple didn't even have to do anything. She just had her face just kind of look a certain way. He's like, all right, you're in. And I was like, well, what does that say about me? That is just like, I didn't have to actually do anything. But either way, she ended up getting dressed up for the role. She's not an alien like them. She's in a costume unlike them in the motion capture suit. But then the problem is she gets called because Glenn woke up. So they're off on their own, and they're supposed to like just scream at something and run away. But the problem is Oliver had to be extra, and he had to be like, oh, you guys go on. He's stealing the show because that's what Oliver do. He very kind of, shocker, Oliver is the attention whore that he is. But he kind of berates Charles even more. And then Charles kind of digs into him about like how nothing's ever good enough and says that no one's actually going to show up at your bachelorette party. I kept saying bachelorette party. Sorry, bachelor party. I kept saying bachelorette party early, didn't I? Sorry. Bachelor party because you are insufferable. But then Charles kind of finally tells him later on what this is all about. I also love that the guy being like, yo, I'm so sorry about this, Brazos, but we have to like escort you out because... you guys have kind of ruined this situation, and Ron's kind of like, no, and make sure you take your picture so Ron can keep up with the people he bans. But yeah, Charles is feeling like the third wheel, because he talks about, like, because earlier in the episode, Oliver made a reference to Loretta. He's like, oh, I got to update my emergency contact and make it Loretta. And Charles did have a look on his face upon hearing that, but now we find out why. Charles is like, you're my emergency contact. I'm trying to remember what. Oh, the Mr. and Mrs. Smith show. Because I was like, there was something recently where that turned into an argument between a couple. Spoilers, but like that ends up being a pretty heated conversation in the Mr. and Mrs. Smith show. So I was like, oh, I knew I remember hearing the emergency contact conversation being in something recently. And I was like, yeah, that was that. But either way, for him, it's like, yeah, you're my friend, you're my emergency contact. And he's like, right, I like Loretta. I really, really like her. And I'm glad about your relationship. But it makes him feel like, yeah, I'm the third wheel kind of tagging along. And it's just like, because he's like, yeah, I knew eventually Maple would. I keep saying, I'm sorry, I have to correct myself because I keep hearing it. I keep saying Maple instead of Mabel. I don't know why. Like, I'm kind of saying Mabel, but it's coming out like Maple. So, but Mabel will eventually leave us and spread her wings. He's like, yeah, that's kind of like a foregone conclusion. I've kind of accepted that. But he's like, yeah, I thought we'd grow older together or something like that. But he just feels like they're kind of drifting apart because, as we know, Charles does not have any friends, especially because like his best friend Saz is gone. So other than Mabel and Oliver, which for him it's like, you know, they're both his best friends, but it's also like, right, me and, you know, Mabel will eventually find other friends, in which, you know, I mean, that's the thing, none of them really have a lot of friends. They only kind of have each other. I mean, as we had that whole setup last episode with the whole found family of it all episode, which once again wasn't just about the Westies. It was also about them, our trio, being a found family. But either way, Charles did not want to actually throw a bachelor party. It was meant to just be a friendship celebration, you know? Kind of like, you know, this might have been like the last hurrah, but, you know, Oliver's like, right, you're still going to be my friend. You're always going to be part of my life, man. That's never going to change. So they go to the restaurant from the Ron story. And, they get the whiskey, and they also have their naughty secret where Oliver's picture was moved and to be right beside Ron Howard. So I thought that was dope. But it's like, oh, A-list celebrity, and Charles is kind of like, you know, and Oliver's like, no. But then, lo and behold, the Ron Howard of it all, you know, so I love that whole sequence. And it's also very heartwarming and obviously awkward as hell because they have to have these conversations over while looking at the menus because Charles doesn't know how to handle that whole situation. But at the same time, Mabel went to go see Glenn, but sadly Glenn died. And, well, not died, was murdered by the protege. And I thought it was so interesting because, like, the nurse was kind of like, my Glenn. I was like, oh, I guess some of that charm was wearing off, like, wearing her down, because she was actually kind of, I guess, extremely flattered, her being like, my Glenn. I was like, wow, that was actually pretty quickly. Like, I guess he hit you with that Riz and you just swept off your feet, I guess, type of situation. But yeah, she felt bad because she's like, yeah, I called friends and stuff like that, or contact. It was like his emergency contacts, I guess, might have been I guess maybe it was like someone tied to production, because it's like, how would our protege know to come to the hospital to come get him, stuff like that, you know? But then, like, I figured the moment Marshall was outside of Mabel's apartment, I was like, wait. I was like, really? I was like, the timing is weird. We're winding down. It's like, this is the penultimate episode of the season, so we have to find out who the protege is by the end of this episode. So I was like, wait, Marshall? And it's like, yeah. Because we ultimately find out that, cause what went wrong is, the stunt went off without a hitch, but the problem was Marshall got up before, because Marshall's not his real name. But I don't know if we're going to find out, like, Marshall's, like, I don't remember if we ever found out Marshall's full name. We probably did, because I was wondering if his name was going to be a mixed up jumble of his actual name, because they said it and I just can't remember what it was. Something, wasn't it something Bailey? I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But Marshall, back then when the stunt was happening, he was burned, but they put him out. But the problem was he wasn't completely out at the time, and he went over to Ron Howard and was still on fire, and the fire kind of and consumed him, and also got flicked onto Ron Howard, burning his eyebrows off. Well, he took off one, but I think he did say both of his eyebrows got burnt off. Because it turned out, even back then, Marshall wanted to be a writer. In fact, he was trying to be one when Saz offered him this opportunity, and he saw it as a great opportunity. But, hey, let me present my script to Ron, and I guess maybe that kind of screwed his chances or something. Because why would he hold an issue with Saz initially? Because you're like, Saz said, like, oh, he was dangerous, but it's like, in what capacity? Like, what happened in the aftermath of that? We'll probably have to wait till the season finale to find out. But Maple ended up finding the script inside of the beer, and it turns out it's Saz's script. Saz was the one writing a script for the Only Murders in the Building movie. So it's like interesting where you're like, oh wow. So I was like, that's fascinating. So that means that, because Bev had said early in the episode, every time he tries to rewrite the script, make any changes, it gets worse and worse. It's like, yes, because the original script's not his, it's Saz's. So I was like, oh, that's so, once again, the little details were there at the time. So I was like, that's fascinating. And I guess that also plays into why the beard and glasses and everything, but they even show with like Glenn being like, oh, when'd you grow the beard? Like, I didn't remember that line of dialogue. So it's like right there in front of your face. Because I think at the time you kind of interpret it as, oh, he sees through it and knows that it's a fake beard or something like that. But it's like, no, he knew because he recognized him. So that's also the thing. Like, maybe they did know each other, because it's like, how else would Marshall have known to go there? So he had to have been Glenn's emergency contact, even, which is interesting considering this is the guy that replaced you in the movie. But once again, there's so many details we're missing there, like what happened after he caught on fire again in front of Ron Howard and burned his eyebrows off, and you know. But I guess, is that why he killed Saz? Because, I mean, it seems like this is all stemming from revenge. Because we also found out that, what was it he stole? Didn't they say he stole Ron's shoes? I guess that maybe that's what the beard was about too, and maybe the glasses. He was trying to replicate more, and like he wanted to become someone different. He wanted to become a writer and stuff like that. Well, we know what his inspirations were, but I wonder on some level, was it the Ron Howard of it all that was also an inspiration in that regard? I'm just interested to find out his motivations behind all this. Killing Saz was to cover up the fact, well, Saz was going to expose you about something, and how does this all tie back into the plot holes of Only Murders in the Building? I guess Saz writing the script for the movie was going to fill them in, but like Marshall was like, no, I need to take this opportunity to make this mine. So he decided to kill Saz to take the script, and he's been killing people to try and cover up his tracks. Why go after Glenn now? Why not go after Glenn before? But I guess now that he's on the production, and I guess like the moment he met face to face, it's like, I can't take the chance he might tie this back to me, so I have to kill Glenn. Why wait till now while Glenn's awake? I guess like too many people were visiting him. It feels like he might not have known at the time what hospital Glenn was actually in, so maybe that's why he had to wait for the call to come in to be like, oh, he's awake, he's at this hospital. Maybe that's why he waited until now to kill him, even though you've had time because he's been in a hospital for a while now. So like I said, I'm so interested to find out and understand his motivations fully and what this is really all about. Not unless there is a last second twist where we're like, no, it's not Marshall. Marshall is a liar and he's kind of hiding who he really is. But maybe, no, because like, yeah, because Ron pointed him out and brought up the shoes and everything, the same shoes that the brothers' sisters are wearing. So I don't know. We'll have to wait to see where the season finale ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.